You killed 9 of my men with one single blade. Only pleasure remains.
Welcome to Dune Part 2, Cram. I hope you've seen the Part 1 recap by clicking that subscribe button, because this film kicks straight in from where we left off. Let's go! Under the orange glow of an Elden Ring, Stilgar is still taking his Fremen tribe back to their siege along with Paul and Jessica. They're still being hunted by the Harkonnens, who are now reaching deeper into the desert than ever before, but who have floated themselves up into a counterattack that means it's suddenly raining men, forcing Paul to get proactive instead of hiding, whilst his mum covers his back. So it's more equipment for the tribe, who even strip the Harkonnens of their bodies' water, which really isn't helping with Jessica's morning sickness, and the Fremen clear out any evidence worm-style before moving on to Siege Tabra, where half of the natives are very unhappy about meeting Jamis' off-world killer, while the other half, who follow the prophecies, think he might be their messiah, the Lisan al-Gaib. And this is the crux of Stilgar's conversation with the elders, as he's willing to see how things play out by championing for Paul, who is a little unprepared for the spicy local cuisine, much to the Fremen's amusement, although Chani does confirm he can fight. Meanwhile, the Harkonnens have fully reinvested into Dune in a big display of power, and from Arrakis, Rabban is back in control of the northern deserts, but his lack of insight into the southern hemisphere is really stressing him out. Jessica is invited by Stilgar to view the sacred water cache of their base, one of thousands among the tribes, where, as evidenced with Jamis, the Fremen's moisture is returned to the tribe as part of their multi-generational dream of returning Arrakis to a green paradise.
So many souls.
And this is because he wants her as a Bene Gesserit to replace their own aged Reverend Mother in a dangerous Kool-Aid ceremony that involves drinking the poisonous water of life to transfer across the generations of wisdom and memories from every Reverend Mother that came before her.
I'll be given centuries of pain and sorrow.
But the unexpected element of her pregnancy catches everyone off guard, pulling the developing fetus into full-on premature consciousness with the same level of intergenerational knowledge.
She talks to me.
And this is not having a very good effect on the mother's mental health. Stilgar comes from the harsh southern reaches where religious zealousy is more common, and he's starting to see miracles in action, while Chani and the northern crews almost come to blows over being conned by a fake prophecy. But Paul tells it true and confirms he's not their prophet come to lead, but simply someone who wants to learn their ways and fight beside them, which appeases the modernists, whilst also managing to sound religiously humble to the fundamentalists. He trains Paul in the ways of the desert and info dumps him like an old nan with a mix of solid advice and spooky stories. Showing a more colourful side to the Fremen, and Chani takes him under her wing for some improved arrhythmic walking and their ways of trapping moisture, before they get back into action and begin disrupting the Harkonnen production of spice, where, in the shadow of a harvester, the Fremen explode up at the last moment into some tight, efficient execution of the Harkonnens. But the air support is no joke, and not really being picky about sides, forcing the team to stay mobile while Chani preps a bazooka undercover and Paul keeps everyone off her back. Well, almost everyone, before baiting himself up as a juicy target to give her the opening for a shield-slipping shot, which frees up the rest of them for a lasgun finisher. And during the after-party, even the doubters relate to his experiences of loss against their shared enemy, with Paul managing to say all the right things about the Fremen's cause being more important than his own individual survival, earning him a place as a Fedaykin, where he adopts the humble mouse name of Muad'Dib, which of course in Stilgar's eyes is a powerful name. And after trying to explain the alien concept of swimming in the sea to a desert girl, he and Chani get together, and so their time grows, with ever-increasingly successful attacks on Harkonnen spice production, and that's making Rabban look weak to his uncle, who's venting off by killing his servants.
Tighten your grip, Rabban, or feel mine on your neck.
Meanwhile, Jessica is starting to go a bit Gollum as she talks directly with her unborn precious, but kind of creeping out some of the locals, although her ultimate goal is to see Paul protected by really igniting the religious prophecy angle, as well as getting him to drink the water of life to unlock his full potential. So as Paul takes the final test of being a true Fremen by showing no fear and summoning a huge sandworm through the peak of a dune in order to leap on board, which comes with its own risks of fatality, Paul's mother wastes no time in folding this into the foretold prophecy of his religious ascendancy and sends out her converted zealots to spread the good word. And this is setting off alarm bells for Chani, who knows that Paul has had visions of the deaths of billions if he follows his mother's path down in the south, which is where she's heading off to next to stir up the other half of the planet in his name, even if it does leave a bad taste in Paul's mouth.
That's not hope!
So as she heads past the storm's barriers into the black sands of the southern zone, Paul remains as a frontline fighter in the north to avoid falling into a god path that would spiral out of his control, and instead directly attacks the spice depots of Arrakis itself. This makes the Beast Rabban respond in force, swarming to the skies and using cyberpunk trackers to hunt down the rats.
I've lost them.
But his frustrations are boiling over and he fires blindly at their last known location before heading in on foot with his assault team, who starts to get picked off by Fremen shadows before he finally realizes he's walked into a zero visibility sand trap and makes a run for it whilst he still has some ships left, where his tail starts to really tuck between his legs when even the average female Fremen warrior almost has what it takes to hardcore him out of action before getting scoped. So that's life out in the desert, but way over on the Imperial homeworld, the Emperor himself has of course kept quiet about supporting the Harkonnens, and his own daughter, who herself is trained by the Bene Gesserit, has started putting the pieces together to recognize the Fremen's new prophet is acting more like an off-world insurgent that's been trained by one of them.
What if Paul Atredies were still alive?
Enough. This must not come out.
Well, Paul might still be their viable supermind, but the Bene Gesserit have no qualms about playing all the sides, and via the hyper-capable Lady Margot Fenring are also keeping an eye on another of their bloodline prospects, the Baron's other nephew, Feyd-Rautha. It's his birthday, and the psychotic killer is celebrating with a grand day in the gladiatorial fighting pits of Gidi Prime under a black sun that desaturates the planet under open sky, creeping out everyone and casually killing his own body servants to test out his new knives, much to the pleasure of his pet cannibals. And although these shows are actually safe displays, where the last of the Atreides slaves are drugged useless for the killing, the Baron has left one of them fully compos mentis, which, despite smelling of betrayal, actually delights Feyd, who now has a real fight on his hands after all. And this in turn makes the populace really get behind their Harkonnen Baron as he steps up to show everyone who he truly is,
You fought well, Atreides.
with the crowd relishing in his victory for real. Now, he is still understandably pissed,
I ought to drown you in that tub.
but overall learns to appreciate the bigger picture, especially when he realizes that Uncle Baron is vetting him to inherit the Imperial throne. And that night, Margot goes full-on witch mode to entice and seduce the Harkonnen heir, sinking in a range of neuro-linguistic barbs and hypnotizing him into a dream walk right back to her place for a little sexual imprinting and a test of the box like Paul, securing a squirt of his bloodline along the way and reporting back on his psychological profile for the sake of future manipulation. Damn! OMG, Gurney Halleck is alive, having remained on Dune as a smuggler to steal Harkonnen spice and be a thorn in their side, inadvertently also making themselves a target for Fremen raids. But the fight turns into a glad reunion, and his old teacher is another voice for using all of the Fremen in a revenge war, but Paul explains his visions of the galactic deaths of billions if he does.
Because you lose control.
Because I gain it.
He's not trained in the Fremen ways and kind of chafing against their vibe. However, as Duke Leto's former war master, he brings the knowledge that the Atreides' arsenal of family atomics, handed down through the generations in the tradition of all the great houses, remains intact.
92 original Atreides family's atomic warheads.
But Feyd-Rautha has been promoted to take over from his brother, and he's not taking any feedback from the current commanders, who have all been failing under Raban's leadership.
You humiliated our family. Kiss or die.
Instead taking the proactive approach of simply systematically turning the northern Sietches to slag with old-school artillery, avoiding ground combat altogether for the sake of some one-sided destruction.
The Harkonnens aren't done here. They just went back to reload.
The survivors must be evacuated, and now even Chani wants him to head south with the convoy, despite Paul's fears for what this will do to them. And on top of this, the religious fundamentalist leaders are calling in the clans for a great Fremen meeting, thanks in part to Jessica, who spent her time stirring up a fever and discovering that the sacred water of life, the key to the Bene Gesserit access to intergenerational memories, is actually made from the bile of the drowned newborn sandworms. So the path has been laid, and with danger all around, Paul must gain the prescient awareness that comes with truly being the One, in order to give all of the Fremen a chance at victory. And so they head south, where he dips for the sacred temple, as his mother has already laid the groundwork to allow for a forbidden male dosage that is normally lethal to all men, and it sends him into a comatose state so deep he appears to be dead. But Jessica can still detect his vitals enough to keep everyone praying, whilst Paul's conscious experience opens up to the memories of his bloodline progenitors, as well as now allowing him clear visions of the future, where Arrakis has been transformed to have a sea, and a grown version of his sister Alia welcomes him with a terrible revelation.
I love you.
Chani arrives to admonish everyone for risking her man, but Jessica forces her with the voice to follow her instincts, mixing a drop of her tears into the poison as an XX chromosome key to unlock his comatose state. And overwhelmed that he's still alive, she is also appalled that having been manipulated into furthering his prophecy, still remaining as a fighter for the sake of her own people, despite now being on a break. But that night alone, Paul speaks of his revelation that Jessica is actually the daughter of the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen.
We're Harkonnens.
Something that even she only discovered when taking the water of life. And so, to survive the future, he shifts from the noble side of his bloodline to the ruthless attitudes of the brutal one, stepping out through the Fremen as a different man. And although Chani tries to get everyone to wake up, Gurney still wants to see how things play out for himself. Because at the great meeting, where only the tribal leaders are allowed to speak, and where an injured Stilgar would give his life willingly for Paul to replace him, the prophet spits their self-destructive custom back in their faces.
I'm pointing the way!
And calls out a challenge to every single person in the room. It's some serious crowd manipulation, because after getting them emotionally engaged, he then resets their expectations by recounting their personal intimate histories. Because where Paul had previously used subtle cold reading to manipulate others, he's now using genuine superhuman ability to look into the past and secrets of those around him, bowing everyone to his cause. So now all of the Fremen are vibing like Stilgar, and by still embracing his ducal heritage, Gurney is committed as well. So then he openly challenges the Emperor with a little hate mail, and Irulan discovers that his own truthsayer was the one to counsel him into exterminating the Atreides to help keep their bloodline projects under control.
But it's backfired.
Yeah, the Emperor is going to lose his seat. But whether it's Paul or Feyd who inherits the throne, Irulan has been groomed her whole life to be the Bene Gesserit imperial daughter that marries them. So Emperor Shaddam heads down to Arrakis in a big display of power with his entire Sardaukar army and sets up his own base, while the Harkonnens react rather anxiously to the surprise order it by alerting all of the other great houses to be witness, just in case it's their own eradication that's on the menu. And Emperor Walken is incredulous at how unaware they are of the uprising on their own planet, slapping down the Baron for incompetency, little realizing they have all fallen into Paul's trap, because he's just outside the basin with a massive Fremen army and uses the family atomics to blast open the mountain walls protecting the city, blowing huge chunks of debris across the Imperial position and crushing the Sardaukar army, who to their benefit are hardcore enough to take it on the chin, only to get swallowed whole by Stilgar's high-speed attack of Leviathan sandworms that pour through the breach, smashing everything to bits just ahead of a sandstorm that sucks up the aerial defenses, while from the other side, Chani leads the Fedaykin warriors in a brutal ground assault where the finest fighters outmatch the Sardaukar as an echo of Paul's earlier visions, suddenly putting everyone on the back foot, while the freeway pincer is completed by Gurney, who moves in on Arrakis itself to flood the streets with soldiers under the Atreides banner and call out Rabban for a moment of direct personal revenge.
For my Duke.
It's a decisive victory, and Paul marches right on up past everyone to stick his grandfather like a pig.
You die like an animal.
Leaving his body for the desert, and he takes a moment to tell Chani,
I will love you as long as I breathe.
but his mother is right about having to play the Game of Thrones under witness of the great houses, calling out an official grudge match on the Emperor and even out-voicing his witch.
Silence!
And so it's Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen who steps up as the Emperor's champion.
Cousin. Is that right?
And where Paul has had to kill to survive, with Feyd, it's more like his favourite form of expression, able to stand toe-to-toe and adapt to Paul's techniques. Outmaneuvering his acrobatic groundwork, and taking special note of Chani before sinking Paul's own crysknife into his side, much to the despair of the crowd. Paul's already seen that he can't stop Feyd from stabbing him, so instead he lets it happen, accepting the inevitable, distracting everyone from the fact that he's pulled out his own knife in return.
You fought well, Atreides.
Garnering some snarky psychic remarks between the Reverend Mothers and forcing the former Emperor of the known universe to bend on down and kiss his ring. Oh my god. And so Paul is to marry Irulan to inherit the throne, but with all of the other great houses refusing to accept his ascendancy, it's become the very thing he once tried to avoid.
The holy war begins.
And heartbroken, Chani can't stay, because although Paul really is their prophesied superhuman leader, it has nothing to do with God or miracles. He's just the end result of social and genetic engineering that's now using the Fremen as tools at the cost of their own lives. So thanks a lot for watching, and hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed having Dune Part 2 crammed inside of you. Thank you to everyone who commented on Part 1, as I want to make the best recaps I can and really appreciate your feedback. Take care.